Quick test. If you ask anybody within your company, employees, what your core values are and how they can be defined, meaning what they mean, how many of your employees know exactly what your core values are, can recite them back to you, and can tell you in the same language that you use what they mean? This is a test that I think most gym owners, but most businesses would fail. And that's what today's episode is about. How to bring your core values to life in your business. Because the truth is, most people don't have, real true core values that get put to work. They have wall art. They have ideas and things that they read in a book and pulled out of like the core value dictionary with the ones that sounded really cool and, framed up on the wall, but they don't really mean anything and they're not personalized to your business. So I want to show you how we've brought our core values to life. When I've talked to a lot of gym owners, the advice that I've given them about making them concrete and real and something that is actually actionable in your business and not just a list of platitudes or words that have no meaning. All right. So I want to start with this story to open and illustrate the point of what are core values. So core values, I want you to think of it like this. You should really think of core values as the set of behaviors that are inherent to your culture. So the way that looks is like when somebody violates a core value or behaves in a way that is not in line with that core value, they get kind of like a side eye from other people that our core value fits. So if somebody is behaving in a way, other people kind of have that natural like disgust about that behavior. Like, yo, we don't do that here. That's kind of what you're striving for when it comes to establishing core values in your company. And I have a story that illustrates this really well. So I was at a business event, not a fitness event, probably 7 or 8 years ago. And it was a group of entrepreneurs and we were talking about, just family stuff. And we all had kids. And I explained, I have a thing that I do with my daughters where when my daughters were born, I created an email address that is like, dedicated to them. And I would send letters to this email address. And some of the other business owners were talking, and when they're 18, I'll give it to them and they'll have kind of a document of letters from dad kind of thing. And these other business owners were talking about ways that they've done things like that. And one of them was saying, I write handwritten cards and I put them in a box and I'm going to give them to my kids. And one guy was like, yeah, like I did that too. I did a handwritten card thing, and I was sending it to my kids who are older, but I just had my assistant write them and, would send them out every single week. And I would like just dictate them. And it gave me I gave this guy like that side eye, like, who the fuck is this guy? Right? Like you're delegating handwritten cards to your kids. And you feel like that is, creating the same impact. That is a core value mismatch where the people that I was talking to, the core value was genuine care and, sentiment in writing a handwritten thing or writing a personal note. And, there was somebody that was like, yeah, I'm just going to delegate that, have my assistant handwrite a card to my kids and send it out. Like they get it. They get the idea, right? That is what I'm talking about when I say you want core values and you want people that share those core values. That person, I'm sure he was a nice guy otherwise, did not share that core value of, integrity that I had. So that's kind of what you're striving for, is like you're striving for people that share that level of core value in your business. So here's how you can do it. There's really 3 ways that I'm going to share that you can really make these core values your own for your company. So the first one is make them your own. Make them individual to your business and unique to you. So years ago, when I established my core values as a company initially, it was because I read a book or I was working with a consultant and the consultant said, you need core values. You need a set of guiding principles. And I was like, okay, cool. So I just Googled company core values and I'll tell you what they sounded like. Be a team player, go the extra mile. I don't remember the rest of them, but it was shit like that. It was like 6 or 7 things that were just straight off the shelf core value language. Right? Be a good person, go the extra mile, help first, right? And I was working with a consultant and we were a part of this consultant. This is later on, this consultant, David Spinks, who wrote one of my favorite books, The Business of Belonging. And he really challenged me, and he's like, yeah, these core values are kind of bullshit. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, this is just off the shelf. Like he used the word platitudes. And I had to look that word up because I didn't even know what it meant. But I was offended because I was like, what? Like, these are really our values. He's like, yeah, maybe. But like, maybe be a team player is a value. But like, it's not sticky. It's not going to like hit the soul of the employees that you're working with, right? It just sounds like corporate bullshit. Like, if you want to build a strong culture, like, make it your own. What are the stories and what are the roots of that you can create a story around and like build some folklore in your business around? And so that's kind of where, it really challenged me to think. So it challenged me to seek out like, all right, how can we make these core values our own, really reflect the heart and soul that we want from our company, the history that we have, the uniqueness of my company. So that was number one, is how do we make these our own? So what I did was, and this is through the work that I did with David Spinks, was I created a series of questions that were, that I brought my team in on. And so I held a company, state of the company meeting, and I said, hey, we're revamping our core values. I want you guys to participate in this, because one thing that I've learned in business is if you do not collaborate, without collaboration, there's no compliance. If you do not collaborate on these values, there will be no compliance. So if you don't bring your team in on big changes like this, they will not adhere to change very easily. The best way to get people to roll with changes or updates to processes and procedures and stuff like this is to allow people to collaborate and feel like they're playing a part in it. So what I did was I came up with a survey that had questions that were like, they were kind of silly because I wanted it to challenge them outside of the box. Questions that were like, what is your favorite memory from working at Gage? And what was a value that really stood out during that time? Another question was, if Gage Strength Training were a movie or TV character, who would it be? And that was kind of the question. Another one was, if aliens arrived and they didn't speak English and you had to show them one example of what Gage Strength Training was all about, what would you show them on a movie screen about what we're all about? Another one was, what was the most frustrating thing about working here that really upset you? And what was the value that triggered in you? So there were a few other questions but they were they were like that. They weren't just like, think of your favorite core values. So I took all those. What I did was I put those into ChatGPT back in the day when it was just like a fancy Google. And I had it say like, hey, identify all the answers, combine these into what themes these are coming into. And that answer sheet is where we came up with our new core values that were highly unique to my business. They have to do with stories from the gym that my employees collaborated on. And we've never had a stronger sense of these core values and people speaking them every single day than when they were completely unique to us and the collaboration that we did with the staff. So that's my number one tip, is make them yours. Make them your core values, not just off the shelf bullshit you read in a book or Googled example core values that you can pull, and bring your team in on the process. I mean, really, like, they're the ones that you want to model these values around. All right. So that's number one, make them yours. Number two is make them concrete. This is like one of the biggest things that I talk to other gym owners about when they talk about core values, because the goal with core values is you should be hiring, you should be firing, you should be rewarding, reprimanding. The backbone of everything you're doing with your team in your business should be centered around these core values. These are the values, the belief systems, the set of behaviors that your whole team should be abiding by. All right. But how do you make those concrete? Because when they're not concrete and measurable and like clearly defined with objective and quantifiable, and I say quantifiable measures, there's a lot of gray area, right? So I'll give you the platitude example of be a team player. What the fuck does that mean? That means different things to different people. And that means there's an extent that might be an extreme of team player, right? So if you've got a core value of be a team player, and you've got an employee that, calls out all the time, they never pick up coverage, they don't stay late after sessions, you may define that as they're not being a team player. But they may define team player as they abide by the rules, they wear your logo, they do other things that maybe in their mind, that is what makes a team player. All right. So the challenge here is, how do you make a set of observable and quantifiable, measurable behaviors that you agree with your team that this is what constitutes or equates to a core value being held? And I'll give you one of my examples. So we have a Kaizen mentality. So Kaizen is Japanese for good change. It essentially means continuous growth and improvement, committed to excellence, always being open-minded to change. Those are the things that the core value means. And one of the areas that this stood out was we were having to hold somebody accountable to not embodying that Kaizen core value. I didn't think that they were doing enough to pursue continuous education. And when it came down to hold them accountable, and I was like, hey, I rate you low on this Kaizen value, they got super offended. They were like, what are you talking about? I am like obsessed with podcasts. I'm listening to audiobooks all the time. Like I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And guess what? What I look at is continuous education. I don't consider podcasts continuous education. I think that's a bullshit education medium. I don't even really like audiobooks because I don't think you're retaining anything. You're not taking notes. You're doing it while you're in the car where you're distracted. So we had a difference in what the belief of the value was. So in their mind, they were exceeding the expectations of a Kaizen mentality. In my mind, because it was an unwritten, concrete, quantifiable way to embody this value, we weren't on the same page. So what this forced me to do was I made 5 concrete behaviors that are observable and measurable for every single core value. So again, I'm going to blank on exactly what they are, but for a Kaizen mentality, it is every single quarter you read a book, you attend a course, or complete a continuous education workshop, seminar, certification every single quarter. That is something that is measurable, right? I can measure if you read the book. I can measure if you did, and it had to be like a pre-approved book, not some bullshit. Number 2 is you bring issues to meetings, right? So you want to improve. You bring issues to meetings on a regular basis. So once a month, once a quarter, or a couple times a quarter, that checks that box. If you bring issues to meetings that you want to present on versus being passive and just like waiting for stuff to happen. Another one is you lead laterally, meaning you share with other people, you educate other people. So we have a lot of opportunities where we encourage people to share what they're learning and things that they're doing. So if people don't do that and they stay really quiet, that is not a Kaizen, core value thing. So the reason I chose 5 quantifiable and like measurable behaviors is because it's allows me to rate them every single quarter on these 5 things. So when we get to the end of the quarter, my goal or the expectation is that to pass a core value, you do 4 out of 5 things in each of those values. So we have 4 core values. So if they fall below 4 out of 5, it just becomes an accountability conversation, a coaching conversation, and say, hey, you didn't do that. You didn't do any kind of education this quarter. Like that's an expectation for our core values. We have to do it this quarter. All right. So that's, tip number 2 with making your values come to life is take your core values, whatever these concepts and these themes are, and make verifiable, measurable, quantifiable behaviors that you can check off. It's black or white. I did this. I did this. I didn't do this. I did this. And you can score it, right? That is a way to bring your core values to life, is to make them concrete. Number 3 way to make your core values really, really come to life is create a system that puts them to use. So we use a system called Bonusly. It integrates with Slack, which is our team communication channel, but it is also a standalone software. This is a software where every employee is given, I think it's like 100 points every quarter, and we pay like $5 per employee per month. Sorry, every month they get 100 points, and we pay for this service. And they can share points with other employees when they see somebody embody a core value. So you create your point system when you set up the app. So we have our core value, things. So if I see somebody do something that aligns with one of our values, which is Kaizen mentality, having strong Wi-Fi, driven by purpose, and build your belt attitude, which is, I'm not going to tell you the entire story of all those, but if they do one of those 4 things, I would tag the employee, I would say what they did, and I would give them a shout out, and I would send them points. All right. My goal is that leadership team drains their points every single month. That means they're constantly rewarding people. And we see a lot of employees, at least the really engaged employees, are the ones that really utilize that, and they get rewarded a lot. So that's a way that we've created a system we want to ingrain our core values into the language that our team is using. So every single week, bonusly points are being exchanged using the language of the core values because it's preloaded. So that's one way that you could ingrain core values into your business, is to use a reward system like that, because at the root of all behavior modification, all behavior change is rewards, positive reinforcement. So if you can reward somebody instantly and consistently and positively, they will change behavior. So if you want your core values to be ingrained, reward people for doing it as fast, consistently, and positively as possible. Now, the cool thing with Bonusly, you can like cash out those points. I mean, after like a year, everyone might have like a couple $100 to spend at like Amazon or Dick's Sporting Goods or something like that. They have a whole mall that they can cash out those points. So pretty cool. So the last thing I want to say about core values is before setting out into all this, is like you want to establish a baseline. So go to your team. This is a homework assignment for you if you're listening to this episode. Go to your team. Have everyone take out a blank piece of paper and ask them to write down all of your core values and what they mean, as a company or as a behavior. Don't give any prompts. Don't give any hints. Let them, see where every single employee is at. Now, you have to resist getting upset if they don't, because this is purely a leadership metric. Right? The percentage of your employees or the how well they pass that test is 100% on you as the leader. It's not on them, it's on you. So take your baseline, set a goal for yourself to say, by the end of this quarter, everybody will be able to recite these core values with this language or whatever, and now set out to build the system to make this real. I can promise you, when it comes to hiring, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to having a gracious goodbye with an employee, if you have the backbone of core values in your business and you have made them concrete, you've made them, yours, you've made them unique to your business, and you've ingrained them into your culture with a reward system or a system to communicate them regularly, your business will be in a much better place from a culture standpoint. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this content, make sure that you like and subscribe to get more of the content that you want to see about growing your fitness business. You can click any of the videos here to see other episodes, but I want to hear from you. So drop some comments into other content that you would like to see.